Good evening and welcome to ESP TV. My name is Karen Bryson and tonight's topic is domestic violence and sexual abuse. We have some amazing panelist guests here with us this evening. Let me introduce to you first Crystal Gatling. Crystal grew up knowing that she had purpose
Hello,
in
how are
her
you?
life. Hi, how are you? Born with a right ear deformity, she was picked on and bullied as a child. Bending to the wrong type of peer pressure, she began doing things to fit in with that group, and at a very early age, she was abused. By age 16, Crystal was pregnant with her first child. Her mother kicked her out of the house, so living on the streets forced her to learn real quick how to survive. Dropping out of high school, Crystal found herself pregnant again by age 19. Life was painfully hard, but Crystal found her way to church through mentoring and ministering from others. And on her 22nd birthday, she gave her life to God. 2 years later, she fasted for direction and was called to evangelism. One of the young ministers who witnessed to her later became her husband. They bore 2 children, and 10 years later, they are still married. Through this marriage and their ministering, they are now ministering to people on the streets where she once hung out, to the homeless shelters, hospitals, jails, and anywhere else that Jehovah leads her. Crystal wrote her first book, The Life of an Overcomer, in 2017. She's also produced 2 albums. All I can say is, look at Jehovah's work. Crystal, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I am well, thank you, and thank you for being with us. Next, we have Kiara Smith. Kiara began a professional music career in 2009 under the Rockstar Entertainment label, releasing her first single, Traces of My Makeup. Her subsequent albums released are Art of Attraction Gold, and her most recent album, Paradox. Kiara's music is inspired by her Pentecostal upbringing. Kiara was also abused while growing up, but that abuse has enabled her to hold on to her faith, and the enrichment and healing through music has given her the courage to use her musical gifts to the fullest. This talented young lady was inspired by Billie Holiday, Nina Simone, Beyonce, and Alicia Keys. And guess what? Kiara is also an actress, co-starring in Oh, Where's My Christmas Tree and This Thing Called Life. Keep your eyes and ears open for this amazing young lady through her music, her poetry, and also in theater arts. Welcome, Kiara.
Hi.
We also have with us Mary McCleary, who is the CEO of Royal Divine Solutions in Hampton, Virginia. Mary is also known as Empress Asheba. She was born on one of the Twin Islands in Trinidad and Tobago. Her family later migrated to New York in 1973 when she was a baby. Empress Asheba also taught for 13 years in early childhood education, where she developed an empathetic skill to assist young people into achieving their best. In 2008, Asheba moved to Virginia. She also furthered her education, receiving her Master's of Arts degree in clinical mental health counseling. She is currently working towards a professional counseling license and pursuing her PhD in counseling education and supervision with trauma and crisis. Her passion lies in helping people heal by supporting victims and survivors of domestic violence, child sexual abuse, and helping people recognize signs of batterers and perpetrators, and assisting perpetrators in taking responsibility for their behaviors and ensuing safety for victims. Asheba facilitates batterer intervention classes for both males and females. who are court ordered to attend domestic violence classes. And yes, we do know domestic violence can be both a male or a female. She is certified in applied suicide intervention skills training, which supports individuals experience suicidal ideation and works with them to create safety plans. We definitely have a lot of questions for you. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Rounding out our awesome foursome is Tracy Hardney Scott. Miss Scott is also known as Raw Silk. She's an award-winning author, noted orator, entrepreneur, and radio television personality. Miss Scott is an alumni of Grambling State University. She also began writing stories and poems at the tender age of 11. She self-published and released her first book, The BS Theory, Embracing the Gift of Women's Intuition, in 2016, which delivers a bluntly honest, high-energy message informing women how to eliminate the BS in their lives by utilizing their innate gift of intuition. Where were you a couple of years ago, lady, when I needed you? This winter, Tracy will release her second book in this series entitled, They Will Stop Feeding You BS If You Stop Providing the Spoon. Love the title. Both books contain true life stories that are relatable and will shine light on how to effectively stop being co-conspirators in the crimes that are committed against us. She's featured in HUAM, creator, executive producer of Sister to Sister, Can We Talk?, which airs on Comcast Channel 95, Verizon 96, and on YouTube. The show is in its 6th season. Huge congrats. Tracy's new political talk show, Conscious Conversation, discusses being Black in America, which is very timely right now. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Ladies, this is such a deep and demanding topic that really needs to be discussed, because for so long, domestic violence and sexual abuse have been swept under the rug or hidden behind doors and not really talked about, especially in the Black environment. My first question to you ladies is, what are some of the warning signs in a domestic violence relationship? Crystal, can you answer that, please?
Sure. You saying domestic violence?
Yes. What are some of the warning signs that a
Okay.
person in the relationship should look for?
Well, me personally, I never actually went through like domestic violence. But I know a lot of people that have went through um of domestic violence. So I can't give some type of insight on that. I would say one sign is when people are like they're distancing themselves.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times when people are being abused, people to know it.
Absolutely.
So a lot of times they're hiding. They don't want to be around people.
Kiara, can you expand on that?
Absolutely. Um, I was in a domestic slash sexual abusive relationship. Didn't last a very long time, but it was enough to leave a mark on my future relationships. And Crystal's absolutely correct. You get to a point where you distance yourself. You're embarrassed. You don't want anyone to see the marking. With me modeling, I had burn marks. I had bruises. And so because you're so exposed in modeling, you do distance yourself. You learn how to do makeup so that you don't have to have that shown. So you're absolutely right, the distancing thing. But to know that the person you're with could possibly be an abuser would be if you can't make your own decisions. If your abuser tells you, hey, I want to go get something to eat, and they're like, no, you're not allowed to go, that's a sign. It'll quickly turn into, you can only go with me. Or you can't go at all. Or just starve, you're not allowed to eat. So Crystal's absolutely right. That distancing It's a huge sign.
Empress Ashiba, considering this is your field, what specifically have you noticed in victims that alert you immediately that there is something wrong?
Her audio is not working.
Yeah.
Okay, there. Her audio is not working.
Okay. Okay, Empress, I'm sorry, but your audio is not working. We're not able to hear you on this end.
Okay. Is this better now?
That's a lot better. Yes. Would you mind repeating what you said, please? Because the viewers on my side did not hear any of that.
Okay, sure. Domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behaviors where one person exerts power and control over another person in the context of a family relationship. So it could be couples, mothers, daughters, mothers, sons, grandparents, aunts, uncles, in laws, so forth and so on. And the whole purpose is for the batterer to maintain, exercise power and control over their victim. So that's what I want everyone to understand. It's all about power and control. Now,
Okay.
within power and control, okay,
Absolutely.
with
Tracy, what are some of the reasons that a person would remain in a terrible toxic relationship like that?
Overall, low self-esteem, lack of confidence. Their mind has been battered down so much until they don't know what to believe about their reality. Embarrassment and shame. The most hurtful thing is to look in the mirror and realize that you tolerated this, but can't understand why that you tolerate this. And we going back to what Kiara said, even before the isolation, it starts small. It starts with a whole bunch of romance and love. It starts with what you think is just like he's paying or she's paying undivided attention to me. But then it becomes an obsession. It becomes like you have to be the primary focus. It starts being where they start popping up where you are. They start critiquing your friends and separating you from your friends. It starts about going through your phone or texting you or calling you every 5 minutes. In the beginning of a relationship, we think that's cool. We think that's fresh. It means that we can most abusers look for women or men that have told their whole life story about how bad their previous relationship is. So they play on just the opposite and they become your everything. And then they start isolating you from family. They start isolating you from friends, the very people who can see what you can't see, what you choose not to see.
Exactly. I'd like a response from each of you on this next question. If the abuser says that if you leave me, I will kill you and all of your family, what type of recourse do they have, or are they too afraid to even reach out for help? Empress Ashiba, can you start us off, please?
sure, it's a challenging time for victims, especially when they hear their partners make that kind of comment. And the victim could end up feeling guilty. The victim could now feel as though they are obligated to attend to the batterer's need. And then many times, as the other individuals mentioned a while ago, the cycle of abuse continues because now it's so repetitive that this person is using that sentence to maintain that power and control, knowing that they can get away with it.
Right. Crystal, what would you like to add to that?
Can you repeat the question one more time? I couldn't really hear.
Certainly. If a person is in an abusive relationship and that person tells them, if you leave me, I will kill you and all of your family, what recourse or how should they react to that?
I think they should take it very serious. Um, I live in New Hampton now, but I come from Newport News, Virginia, and I actually had a few friends, girlfriends that died domestic violence, and that's exactly what the guys told them, that if you leave me, I'll kill you, and they didn't take it serious. And I know some people that are actually dead today because of it.
My goodness. Kiara, what are your thoughts on this?
Um, I personally would say that you'd have to take it with the case by case basis. My abuser, after I was raped, didn't so much tell me that he was going to hurt me. I'm a lover of children. And at the time of my rape, the person I was staying with had 3 children and a brother she had custody of. And because you're abuser, they know you, they study you. He told me, if you tell anybody, I'm coming after those kids. So in that situation, I took it serious, um, but only because this person was a gang member. So dealing with that and dealing with an individual abuser, it was a little bit different. I had to take it seriously because it might not have been him that came after the kids, but it could have been someone else in the gang. So yes, definitely take it seriously, but look at it at a case by case basis. Always try to make sure that there's someone that you can trust. Because you might not can go to the police and feel comfortable that way, but you can go to a close friend or relative, and then you can go together and set up protection that way.
Absolutely. Tracy, does your either one of your books address any of this?
Up in a safety circle. But I'm sorry, ladies, I'm more strict. If you threaten me and you threaten my family, then I'm going to jail because I'm killing you. Because I take you 100% serious. This kill or be killed is survival of the fittest. Because unfortunately, in these United States of America, a woman and a black woman in particular doesn't have any value on their life, number one. So I'm sure the queen can tell you that you can go to the police and a lot of times they don't believe you. They become so desensitized to that cry wolf syndrome of people, coming in and complaining or utilizing the court systems, and then they end back up with their abuser. So they turn a deaf ear. So there's not a lot of protection still in place right now for women that's going through that. So for me, I know that may seem wrong, but if I'm in that situation, you're getting ready to die.
Okay.
And may I
I
please add?
Yes, Empress. Yes. What is your thought?
Well, Tracy, it's very difficult because the victim can get a restraining order, right? But the restraining order does not protect the individual.
Not at
You
all.
know, I've been facilitating classes for 8 years, and when a threat is made, you must take it serious. You must reach out to support systems. And you may need to leave the environment. You may need to leave the state. You may need to access your positive support system. You may need to let your neighbors know, all your family members, because this is serious. You have to remember when a perpetrator is ready to cause harm, that protection order is not going to help the victim at all. So the recommendation is please be aware that it's a threat and to always take it seriously. If you need to write it down, please write down the dates, contact family members, and make sure you protect yourself. That is the key thing.
Absolutely, I totally
Absolutely.
agree.
What are the possibilities once you're in a relationship that is toxic and abusive and you're finally able to get out of it? Do you Have you found that you end up in another relationship exactly like that without seeing the warning signs first? Is that a possibility? Can someone respond to
It's a,
that?
it's a strong possibility, and the reason why is because most people go from one relationship to the other without evaluating themselves and realizing what it is about me that draws those type of people to me. okay, and we don't take time to heal and to self process for ourselves. Women are naturally like to be nurtured, so usually people like that prey, and I say prey because that's what they are. They're predators. They prey on a certain type of man or a certain type of woman. And if you're not, a lot of us are not truthful with ourselves. A lot of us don't want to realize that we are contributors to some of the things that happen to us. And what I mean by that, with no disrespect, we get into a situation with someone that we know for a week, and we're telling them our whole life story. We're telling them everything that went on in our last relationship. We're telling them how he used to treat us. And so he's gonna do just the opposite to draw you in. It's like fishing. They're gonna draw you in hook, line, and sinker. So I think that process of, yes, more times than not, and I'm sure that the queen could attest to this, that more sometimes there are women that are in multiple abusive relationships before they break the shackles of being free.
Yes, Tracy, if we think about trauma, and Crystal as well as Kiara, if we think about trauma, trauma is something that is disturbing, anything that is upsetting, right? And it has an emotional reaction. Suppose you were 2 years old and you witnessed your parents, your grandparents, your uncles, your aunts with their partners constantly arguing and fighting and belittling and calling each other names, profanity, right? And you grew up in this household for years. Now you're an adolescent and this is still going on. But guess what has happened already? First of all, you are aware that the brain does not develop until you're like 27 years old. But because you have experienced emotional abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, and unfortunately sexual abuse in the home at a young age, your brain did not get the chance to develop properly or healthy. And as a result, once you continue to develop over the years and you did not receive any kind of intervention for witnessing or being exposed to domestic violence, no intervention, it's hard for you to understand what a healthy relationship looks like. It's hard for you to even grasp what's appropriate from what's inappropriate. So that's why there's many times that individuals they enter these ongoing relationships because as Sister Tracy just mentioned, they've never had a chance to receive intervention. They've never had a chance to heal. They've never even identified what what are my flaws, especially in interpersonal relationships. They didn't get a chance to assess this. So now they lack the self awareness to even understand, uh-oh, am I engaging in these behaviors? Is my partner engaging in these behaviors? And that's the reason why so many people continue to enter in these unhealthy relationships because they really don't know any better. And it's not until they receive therapy, where the therapist is able to process with them what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, that's when healing begins.
Okay, as a whole, our
Yes. Can I
race
say
normally
something?
doesn't. Give me one moment, please. As a whole, our race normally doesn't turn towards um, professional help and guidance in this area. Um, it's sad, but this is why the forum is so prevalent now that we really need to discuss this. And I'm sorry to cut you off. What did you want to say?
Yes. I just wanted to say too as well. I'm looking at the screen and it says, and you queens, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I always looked at sexual abuse and domestic violence is something separate. And reason why I say that is because you can be sexually abused, you can be domestically abused and not be sexually abused. So I always looked at them two as separate. So for instance, with me, I was molested at the age of 8, between the age of 8 and 9. Um, and that was sexual to me. It was abuse, of course, but I don't look at it as domestic. I always look at domestic as when someone is putting their hands on you or they're fighting you or they're beating you. I always equated it as that. Now I could be wrong. Um, but I was sexually abused as a young child. But then when I grew up, and as I said, being put out my mom's house at the age of 16, moved going from house to house and living from here and there. I was raped more than once by more than one different guy. Um, and so with that, and so with that, I'm sorry, it's kind of staggering a little bit. But I'm gonna try to still talk through it.
Go on.
So
We're with you.
I was molested as a child, but then when I grew up and I got into my teenage years, you know, living, being grown, going here and going there. I ended up I was date raped once, and then the other two got by different. All three occasions by three different kinds of three different guys, and so at different times. Neither one
Okay.
beat me up, sort of say, but it was, either I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do something to you, as in threatening me. Um, so I kind of looked at the two as a different setting, far as in being sexually abused, domestically abused.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Kiara, may I
Does
please?
Does anyone
I
else
would
have a
like to just,
response to that?
yes, I would just like to educate Kiara on, as I mentioned early on, domestic violence within the state of Virginia.
Crystal.
Kiara, Crystal.
Crystal,
Oh,
yes.
thank you,
Yes,
Crystal.
ma'am.
Thank you, Crystal. 'Cause
It's
I
okay.
couldn't see the name on the screen. Thank you, Crystal. Within Virginia, domestic violence is a pattern of physical, sexual, and emotional slash psychological abusive behaviors where one person exerts power and control over another individual in the context of a family relationship. So, if in the event I've heard your story, and I want to say thank you for sharing with us, for your vulnerability, and for your resilience. I want to definitely say that because you are here. So, give thanks. But if this happened to you as a young child, and it happened either within the home, it happened with a family member, that is related to domestic violence because it happened within the context of a family relation, relationship. And so we have to always remember, even with domestic violence, everyone knows about the physical abuse, right? But the psychological, the emotional, has long lasting effect on a person's development. So in the context of sexual abuse, a child that was molested, that individual, and there's research on this, the ACE study, Adverse Childhood Experiences. If you were abused, if you experienced neglect, and if you experienced household dysfunction as a child in later years, you are going to have some significant medical as well as mental health challenges. Once again, even if you did not receive any kind of intervention, it would end up being a little bit worse in later years. Was that a little bit clear, Crystal, about what domestic violence entails and how sexual abuse is
Yes.
used within the domestic violence? Okay, wonderful.
Yes. But it didn't happen in my home. It happened actually when I was staying at a friend's house. As a little girl. But yes, that definitely cleared that up. And thank you so much.
You're welcome, sis.
I'd like to ask, how is it possible for a child, perhaps it's out of fear, that can be molested or abused in a household for a period of years even, and no one else notice, or is the child that afraid to say anything that no one will believe them? How is that possible?
Um, I can say
Okay.
with a child, a lot of times kids, you can, I mean, by me being abused when I was a child, I can tell if I see another child that's been abused because that look, it'll never change. And so if I look, I can look at a child and say something's going on with that child, and A lot of times people notice and they see, but they just don't say anything. It's like whatever goes on in their house is what goes on in their house. They feel like it's not their problem or it's not their business. And I think that is sad because you have a lot of children that get abused, and sometimes children will even tell. But sometimes they have parents that don't really care. They go on just like as if it's nothing that's ever happened. And a lot of times it's because the parents have been abused and they don't know how to break the cycle. And I can say, as my story is a part of my testimony. I wrote a book called The Life of an Overcomer, and it tells my testimony from when I was a child all the way to now that I'm an adult. And I tell about how I was molested, and I tell about how I was raped. I tell about how I dated people who was murderers. They never put their hands on me, but I seen them do other things to other people. And so, as far as an abuse, that's why I asked that question, and I'm so glad you clarified it for me because I never looked at domestic violence and sexual abuse as the same things. I seen people get beat up all the time, but I never seen people always get sexually abused. So now you just open up a new door for me to a revelation for me to see that it's pretty much part of the same things. Um,
Yes.
it's very important that we speak out about it, and that's one of the reasons I agreed to come on because I want people to know my testimony, and I give all the credit to God because I already know, who delivered me. If it weren't for Him, the woman was saying, me and my husband been together for 10, going on 11 years, and I'm not that old, you know. But God is giving us favor. He's giving me grace. He restored me. Where the enemy tried to break me down, he used those things to try to mess my mind up, tell me I couldn't be nothing and couldn't do nothing. But God came in and he switched the whole thing up. So
Amen.
I look
Amen.
forward to giving my testimony. Whenever a
Absolutely.
door opens up, I look forward to telling the people of the goodness of God because really I should be out of my mind. But if it hadn't been for the goodness of the Lord, where would I be? I give all the credit to
Amen.
Him. I already know I'm nothing. I'm nothing without Him. You know. But when He came in, when He stepped in on my 22nd birthday, and He did something. I found myself on my living room floor, 22 years old, with two children in an apartment, didn't know how the next meal was gonna come. But God, he sent a letter through the mail, a church all the way in California. And the church told me that I was gonna meet a pastor, and I met a pastor that very day. And with that pastor was my husband,
All right.
our witnesses. And they had one track, and I got that last track. I can't get off here without telling my testimony. Because God been too good to me
Amen.
now. Jesus been
Amen.
too good to me.
Yes.
I gotta tell the story. But yes, it's real. Domestic violence is real, sexual abuse is real, and it's going on right now. Some probably even as we speak. But this is gonna help somebody out there that is going through something that don't know how to get through it. When you try a psychiatrist, and when you try the therapist, and when nothing else helps, when nothing else works, call on Jesus. Woo! Hey, call on Him.
Amen.
He'll turn it
Okay,
around for you.
ladies, let me ask you this then. If you have a child that comes home, or even you as an adult, you know that your neighbor is abusing the children, or you see it in your church home or wherever, is it our responsibility to report it, to be concerned enough to try and stop it and step in? What obligations do we have, and can we report it, and to who?
Absolutely.
Can
Social
I
services.
can I take that one? If y'all
Yes.
don't mind. So I was actually the initial start of my abuse was in church. And I didn't think that it was abuse because they were my peers. But I was raised in a church that was very don't say anything. There was a lot of hierarchy. So I could say as a child, I said something and it fell on deaf ears. So it kept happening over and over and over again. And I told adults. One thing that I regret, but I understand now, even as recent as today, speaking with some people, um, if you are a witness to it and you know what's going on, you can see the signs. As Crystal said, say something, report it, tell somebody. 'Cause I'm 30 years old and I still cry at night from the things that happened to me when I was a young kid. Um, and I cry more not so much from the abuse, but from the broken adult relationships that I had where I pleaded and begged and came home every night and cried. And I'm like, I'm crying hard. My mama don't understand it. My dad doesn't know what's going on because all I can do is cry. But you have to make sure that these children are building trust with adults.
Right.
I didn't have any trust. I kept seeking. So as I got older, that abuse turned into two different types of trauma. One, it was sexual trauma where I was continuing to look to men and women for gratification, like, please love me. But then I was also indulged in the trauma of seeking out people who are older than me and trying to rebuild that relationship. And like I said, this is something that's still currently going on. Like, I can sit down and speak with someone at 30 years old to someone who's 60 because I'm still trying to repair that. I'm still trying to tell myself that I can trust someone who is older than me. So absolutely, if you are of age, and even if you're not of age, if you're the exact same age, and you see someone in a church setting or a school setting or anything that's public, and you see that that person's being abused, speak up and say something because that person who is being abused, sometimes they can't find their voice, or they're just looking for the right person to just listen.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. If I could, Karen, if
Yes.
I can add to that, yes, I agree with her. You definitely should say something, but I think that the first thing we need to do is go back and look at children as people, because people seem to think that children are like some little inanimate object that sits on the side until they grow up and become 18. And that's where some of the problems start. That in some households, children are not allowed to have a voice and speak when spoken to, talk to. But even as adults, we have to stop forcing relationships on our children. Think about how many times you see a child has great instinct, but we'll see a child not want to go to uncle such and such or cousin such and such. And instead of you trying to read what it is about that child is feeling, you force that child. Go on over there and give your uncle a kiss. Go on over there and give him a hug. Don't be disrespectful. So that's a concern. But another concern for me, especially as women, is stop letting everybody play daddy to your children. Okay, if you're in a relationship and
Absolutely.
you're in a relationship for you, that is not a surrogate father for your child. There are people whose children have been abused because you get comfortable with some random dude that you're comfortable with, and then you need to go shopping and you need to go to hang out with your girlfriend, and you're leaving your children who you've been charged to protect with a stranger. Okay, there's somebody that you're getting ready to know. So I think that those are some of the the major issues. I know that a lot of people, we grow up, and especially in our village, it's over not my baby, not my problem, and not my business. But that's not how this village is supposed to operate. It is your business. You are charged with protecting the children, and children should have a voice. And I can just tell you from experience, when they talk, listen. Okay, when they talk, listen, and if they tell you something, it's the truth. Children are not going to sit and concoct this grand lie uh, about somebody molesting them for absolutely nothing. That's not going to happen.
That is so
Yes,
true.
and I also like, do not judge the children when they are talking. You know, we have to be able to not only receive what they are telling us, but to also help them solve what that
Right.
problem is and be
Absolutely.
non judgmental during that process. We want children to be able to come to us. We want them to be able to trust us. And if they've experienced sexual abuse and they're telling the adult, and then the adult totally shuns them away, that child is scarred from that point on. And then that child continues
Absolutely.
to develop. So can you see the pattern of why that child is not going to trust adults as they continue to develop in later years? So go to call social services, let them know that you suspect there's domestic violence in the home, you suspect child abuse, and they will ask you information and they will do an investigation. They will go into the home and do what is necessary to make sure that that child is safe. So yes, we are responsible, especially if we know or we suspect we are responsible, and social services will investigate that.
Can I add just one point to that too,
Yes, you
Karen?
can. Yes.
And I totally agree with the queen. But the other thing that we have to remember is that doesn't make you a bad parent. That doesn't make you a bad person. I think a lot of times people do not share these stories or what happened to their children because they feel like they failed in some way. They feel like they did something wrong, and it's their own personal guilt that allows them, and then the dirty little family secrets. You have people that just like to perceive that everything is great in their household with the white picket fence and everything is perfect. But meanwhile, that, like the queen said, trauma manifests itself sometime. It may be 15, 20 years down the line. But anyone that has been in this situation, you will be able to trace back once you know the manifestations of that trauma.
Correct.
Absolutely. Are there any possibilities that a person that has been sexually abused will turn to someone from the opposite sex and no longer want to deal with a heterosexual relationship, or even want to change genders, or just close themselves off altogether from any type of relationship with anyone? Empress, can you sort of give some input on that before I ask the other ladies, please?
So here's the thing. It's a case by case situation with every individual. I've worked at a residential facility before where I worked with teenagers. They were as young from 12 to 19 years old. And all of them were unfortunately molested as children. And at that particular age, as adolescents, they were all in same sex relationships. Does that mean that once a child is molested, they're going to seek towards same gender relationships? No, that's not what it means. I'm just sharing with you that that is what I had experienced when I was working at a particular residential facility. There's people who end up in relationships of the opposite gender. So it just I there's not a clear cut um, analysis as to why or how individuals get in relationship, especially if domestic violence was rampant in the home. It just depends on exposure. It depends on interactions with people. It depends on who were the support systems available. It depends on how they feel about themselves. There's not a clear cut response to your question, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crystal, you said that you've had relationships with both sexes. Is it because of the abuse that you encountered, other than just trying to find lasting
That's
love from
good.
either gender? What was the
Um,
purpose?
that was Kiara, I believe.
Kiara, I'm sorry, Kiara.
Um, I I can say yes and no. Um, Growing up, I was abused by one woman or someone who was my age that was a female, and then everyone else was they were men. But my thing is, I was really close to my mother. So I think that my relationship with women isn't so much a sexual thing; it's more so a comfort.
Okay.
It's very difficult to tell a man that you've been sexually abused by other men and for them to understand. But
Right.
most women, unfortunately, almost almost every woman that I've sat down and had a full blown talk about molestation and rape, they've all been through it. So that causes it to be an easy way to communicate. I don't have to worry about, oh, I don't understand why you don't like me to put my hands on you a certain way. That's what men do. But females, it's not the same way. I can't say that I'm consistently in relationships with women. I'm still very guarded with men and women, but I have been in a few same sex relationships. I have. But it wasn't targeted from the abuse. I think it was a result thereof. Like, I feel comfortable speaking with you because you've been through this before.
Okay. Each and every one of you are strong women, and everyone doesn't have that same strength, that innate ability to seek other avenues to push past it. Have either one of you ever thought about suicide concerning your circumstances?
Absolutely.
Yes. When I was I don't now. I want to say this. Uh, I'm a very spiritual person. And the reason why I'm so spiritual is because if you would have known me before where I'm at now today, you wouldn't even believe that you're talking to the same person. And so with that result, I can't do nothing but give God all the glory for it. Um, my experience was a little different than what Sister Kiara was saying. Um, she said she still thinks about her abuse and things that she went through. And I did in the beginning, but once I turned my life over to the Lord and I really began to pray and seek the Lord about the matter, I had to fast and pray. Um, but God delivered me from that. I don't have dreams and I don't have nightmares and things of that of what I went through. And that's not because of no goodness of my own. I credit it all to the grace of God.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can say is, I just believe in the power of God. I believe that all things are possible to them that believe. And in this life, I believe you need that spiritual connection because we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but it's against powers and principalities, wickedness in the high places. So it's not always, a lot of times we look at the person. But for one, I had to forgive those who abused me. And that was the first step. God let me know I had to forgive the ones that trespassed against me. And once I forgave them and I prayed for them, when I saw them, their anger was gone. But I know that that was no power of my own.
Right.
I give that credit to the Lord. But I would definitely say that when you talking about same sex, when two different people come together, I wouldn't say that it's because of abuse. Because
Okay.
you got I know people who are like that that never been abused. So
Okay, did any of the rest of you ever consider suicide as a way out of the pain and the hurt? And if so, were you
Yeah.
actually looking to do it, or were you just seeking a voice to scream, "Look, I need help"? Kiara?
I yeah. So interestingly enough, I the day that I was raped, so all of this abuse and everything I went through as a young age, I had my moments, but I was a kid. But when I was 19 and I was raped, a couple days later, I hadn't been sleeping because again, this gang member told me if I say anything, I'm going to kill those kids. I'm going to come and get you. You can't tell the cops. I went to tell my pastor about what happened, and he responded the way he responded, and it was a trigger. Um, and I really wasn't trying to commit suicide, but when I got to a certain point of how I was feeling physically, I felt like I'm committed at this point. So when you're abused, you seek something. Some people fall back into sex, some people fall into drugs, alcohol. The girl that I was living with was of age to purchase alcohol. My abuser had hit me once so hard that I had to take Vicodin. I was not living in my parents' house. So leaving a church home to go to what we would consider secular, she was having me drink all the time. I was following her on, for lack of better terms, her sexcapade. So after I got raped, I'm with her 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning. Hey, you can't sleep. Take your Vicodin. Take a shot of liquor. So a couple days after I was raped, I went to the church, talked to my pastor, and I just really wanted to go to sleep, to be honest with you. My anxiety was so bad. I was having panic attacks. I felt like I was being followed. If I walked down the street, I would take 10 different ways to get down one street because I thought I was being followed. So that particular day, I took a few Vicodin, took a couple shots of alcohol, paced around for a little bit, tried to lay down, still not sleep. Did it again, still not sleep. And then I realized I might have taken too much. I was in the house alone and I just figured, you know what? It is what it is. If I die, I die. I kept thinking this man took something from me, even though I had previously lost my virginity. It had only been 2 months. So I lost my virginity. 2 months later, I got raped. It was just not a good experience. Um, that would be what I would say is my first suicide attempt. That suicide attempt led me to be locked up in Riverside Behavioral. I was there for about 3, 4 days, um, and I didn't want to be helped. So I straightened up, slide right, let me do what they want me to do. No, don't give me any more pills because that's what got me here. Like I really played the role because I just wanted to get out of there. I could say over the course of from 19 to 30, I had, God's grace covers me. I had attempted suicide well over a dozen times
Oh my
from
gosh.
that rape.
Empress, with
And
um,
it was a lot.
I'm sorry. Empress, with your background, how have you been able to help those in your care under those same circumstances?
First, not judging them. You know, letting them know that it's okay to be vulnerable, letting them know that they are resilient and they're here. And because of what happened in their past, it does not define who they are. That's number one.
Hmm.
Another, yeah, another area is for them to just process what their life is in the current moment and the next step that they want to take to move forward. Because sometimes
Okay.
a lot of they're stuck because of their past and they're able to make certain effective decisions about their life. So I just help the individual stay in the present moment, help them think about their future goals, and then work with them on that aspect to let them know that they're loved, they have a voice, they can move forward, they can heal. You know, the brain is a magnificent organ that when you have positive experiences, the neurons fires quicker and your brain rewires itself. So even though
Yes.
individuals experience horrendous situations, you still have the capacity to heal in this present moment. And it's just going to take work. As the sisters mentioned, prayer, whether you do coping skills, whether you meditate, whether you do yoga, whether you do gardening, or whether you even allow yourself to heal. Because for some people, they don't even acknowledge themselves to move forward and heal or to show compassion to themselves. So, so an individual has to first identify, you know what, I am loved and I have the ability to heal and move forward. So once I'm able to work with them in that aspect, and and they understand and they agree that they do want to move forward because I can tell them everything, but it's not up to me at all. It's actually up to them whether or not they are ready, and I just support them in the process.
Absolutely. Tracy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
speak on a subject that never affected my life in that way. So I think she definitely blessed us.
Okay, a question I want to ask each of you. I'll start with Tracy. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Good question.
Good question. Knowing what I know now, having to keep the self confidence that I had as a child, that adults break children down with crazy things that they say that they don't realize that, you know, realizing that confidence is not cockiness, outspokenness is not disruptive or rude. So I would say be real self, because that's who you're going to grow up to be. Okay, and love yourself. Appreciate every inch of yourself. Don't small up yourself to make other people feel good.
Absolutely. Kiara, what would you tell your younger self?
Stay in church for sure. Um, I would tell my younger self to love herself. I think for a very long time I just didn't. I took things, a lot of things personal that really had nothing to do with me. I shrunk myself, as she stated, so small to where I disappeared. But definitely love yourself, own your body because I've looked like this since I was 12. And that, some things, it's okay, but you get through them and open up your mouth. I really wish when I was younger, before I got raped, and it was the sexual abuse from my peers, I really wish I would have been strong enough to open my mouth.
Okay, Crystal, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, my mom, she didn't even find out about any of my abuses until my book came out, which was about 2 years ago. And so I didn't say anything. I went through it. And it was hurtful. I wish I would have trusted someone, enough to open my mouth. Pretty much like Kiara said, just to say something, you know, um,
Absolutely, yes.
yeah, to just say something.
Empress, considering this is your field and your line of
Sure.
work, what would you say to encourage all of these young ladies that are listening to us now and here on the panel with us? What encouraging words would you pass along to them?
Sure. But first, I want to, what would you tell your younger self? I love you. I understand you. I thank you. I am sorry. I am here for you. I support you. And you are loved. To support each and every single one of you who have experienced domestic violence and sexual abuse, you have the capacity to heal. You have the capacity to move forward. Reach out to positive support systems. You are resilient. You have a voice and you are loved.
Oh, that is beautiful. Ladies, we have a quick minute and a half. In 10 seconds or a little less, can you at least just tell us where we can find your books or your music or any contact information? Tracy, would you like to start?
Tracy Hardy Scott. You can find me on Amazon and Goodreads.com. Facebook, author Tracy Hardy Scott. Hit me up and I'll send you everything that you need to know.
Absolutely. Crystal?
Yes, I'm Crystal Gatlin. My rap name, gospel rap, Crystal G. I have a CD on. I have all my CDs on Amazon, iTunes, and probably some more stations. And I'm gonna have my book, The Life of an Overcomer. That's on Amazon, and you can find it at Barnes and Noble and different things of that nature.
Thank you. Kiara, is there anywhere we can contact you for your book?
Yes, I actually do music. You can find me anywhere you can search music. MISSKEYS. My stage name is Miss Keys for Keep Encouraging Yourself. So all of my albums are out there. You can also follow me on Facebook at K Smith, KAY Smith, where I've started doing testimony Tuesdays and Thursdays, where you want a little bit of encouragement. I drop a testimony and you can just say,
Absolutely. Empress, real quick, we have just a
Sure.
few seconds left. Where can they
Yes,
contact
Royal.
you?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Royal Divine Solutions. Also, at Chiba Carranza, just find me.
Thank you, ladies. Be a blessing to at least
Thank
one other
you.
person every day. You've been watching ESP
Nice to
TV.
meet you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
and good
you.
night.
Thank you.